Get started. All right. Welcome to week 7 of Mels 603. Please remember that next week, we do a new share. Let's look at our weekly schedule as we always do. Next week, you have spring break. So no class next week. You can get caught up on your sleep or your work or your evidence artifact work. You can get caught up on something. Remember, we never really have weeks off. We just have a week off from me. So make sure you know where you are and what to do. So this week, we're going to do technology, social media, and cyber issues. I had you examine a school or district policy on cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is the most controversial issue that we have today. Many people don't understand it, are confused by it, don't know what it is, what it isn't. They've heard it's been repealed. I'm going to try to make some sense of all of it tonight. I've got several documents. And the reason I don't post them is because they are somewhat confusing and contradictory. And so I just have the North Carolina manual, what it says on cyberbullying, and we're going to start with that in a few minutes. And I'll try to work us through that. So let's look at where we are on our evidence artifact, where we're supposed to be. We're on week 7. You should be finishing up task 3 now and going to task 4. Please remember that task 4 is a review of how you met your competencies. Let me do task 4 is a review. You've done that before, as I said last week. And so it does not have to be peer reviewed. When you get 4 done, you can upload it for my review, and I will tell you to move on. Please remember that when you put your final evidence narrative together with all 4 tasks of the OMA, you will need to go to your intern shell in Blackboard, and under final task evaluation for the OMA, there's a turn it in drop box there. You need to put it through turn it in before you go to task string. Now, I know you know that the final document should only have one comprehensive reference list and one comprehensive set of appendices. But when you go to your clinical coach shell, clinical internship shell, and click on OMA final evidence narrative for evaluation, there's a box at the end for turn it in. And this will help us with any problems that we'll avoid problems down the road when we take it to task string this way. So let's make sure that we remember Dr. Stedman is your clinical coach. So if you go to his box in Blackboard, it says clinical internship shell -Stedman, and you click on OMA for evaluation. There's a turn it in box for your final one to go through. Now you can only use it one time. You know how turn it in works, but make sure that this gives you a chance to run it through turn it in before you put it in task stream where it's run through to turn it in. So we're offering you that option now to fix any problems you have up front. Anybody have any questions on turn it in? Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. So if you go to Blackboard, and I am not sharing right now, and we go to Blackboard, next to somewhere there in your My Courses, you will have a intern shell, and it says Mels Clinical Internship Stedman. Let me do a resume share here, new share. Go back to desktop, share screen, get that one out of the way. You should be able to see that on your screen now. It says Mel Clinical Internship Stedman. You click on that, and when you do, OMA evaluation Dropbox, you click on that, and there's where you do your turn it in right there. Just that simple. Now, this one's without penalty. This one just is for you to go in and fix up whatever you need to fix up. Don't be concerned unless it's more than about 50%, because you've got your directions, your tasks, your prompts, all that stuff. If you get up above 50%, you probably need to work on it, getting that down around 50%. There's going to be a match with other folks because of your directions and those things, but we're just worried about the content. So if you can get it below 50%, you'll be fine. Okay, first question of the night. Yeah, it will detect that from that's why I said you got some stuff. So that's why I'm giving you up to 55%. That's a good question from Michelle. Will it detect work as plagiarism? We submitted last semester, we copied the work from the app. Absolutely. That's why I said on this, normally it's about 40%. On this one, I'm going to give you up to about 50% because of that. I mean, I understand that. But about half of it should be original work, and half of it's going to be copy the task and the prompts, and all of task 2 is going to be copied from the AppTel. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape as long as you stay around 50, even 55. I'm not going to get bent out of shape. Normally, I would set the standard at about 40, but that's a good point. And that's why it's a little bit higher for the OMA, because you copied and pasted out of your AppTel. That's exactly right. Good point. So when we get to the skip later on this semester, it's going to be around 40 because there's not really any copying and pasting in it. Emily's got a question directly pertaining to the OMA. All right, Emily, what is your question? Do I need to unmute you, or you want to type it?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So here's my only question, and this may be dumb, but whatever. If I don't ask, then I don't know. Some of these things, like for task 3 that I'm finding out, and I don't know if anybody else is finding this out too, but like directly speaking with my APs who I am very close to now, some of the stuff is like how much input do your teachers have in the schedule? None. I mean, it's stuff like, are you expecting to see stuff like that?
I am. Okay,
so I've learned a lot about the different teachers that they can put different trust in and stuff like that through all that. Are you expecting to see things like that? Like, okay.
I want you to focus on the process.
Right.
I want you to focus not so much on the schedule itself, but the process. And remember, I told you when we started this course, this is about how you're supposed to do it the right way.
Right. So that's what I was asking. If I'm seeing things that are probably not right, you're not looking for a masterpiece of a beautiful, wonderful school.
No, I want you to know what the right way is and be able to assess whether they're doing it the right way. Not so that you can go run in and tell them, aha, you're doing it wrong, but so that you will know that just because there's a right and wrong way to do things legally, doesn't mean that people always choose to do them the right way. I mean, we have historic ways that we do things, what I call usual customary practices, that we do them because we've always done them that way, whether they were the right thing or the wrong thing. But what I've got to convince you of during this course is that's all well and good until somebody it's all fun and games until somebody gets their eye put out, till you get caught. And then, well, we've always done it that way. It's not a defense you want to take to court. Trust me. Well, I've always done it that way, or that's what I inherited. You're supposed to know what the law is and follow it. Nobody can give you permission to break the law. And if you do things the wrong way and it becomes an issue, there is no cover for you. The folks in your central office can't cover for you. They can't go out in court and say, yeah, we told them to break the law. No, we can't do that. And so what I want you to know is how to do it the right way. It's illustrative to you, and it's a teachable moment for you to find out, well, they don't do it the way they're supposed to. No wonder that we have problems with it.
Don't cry. Okay, so then
that's
one more thing. I guess
know. That's why I have you assess the process.
Okay.
So for that very
so you're
reason.
Expecting to see like my school have specific holes that you would not agree with.
Yes.
And I'm supposed to, okay. All right. I just
And
wanted to.
and what I want to know is, do you recognize that? Are you smart enough to pick that up on that?
Yeah, big time. And I'm shocked every day I do a
Well,
new.
that's the idea here is you're supposed to be able to know, um, uh, right from wrong and what's good and what's bad. That's what I'm trying to teach you.
Okay. So
That
even.
you just can't always go with well, it was always set up this way, so that must mean it's okay. No.
Okay.
Just because we've done it that way forever doesn't mean that it's the right way or the legal way to do things. Things stand and are done until somebody legally challenges them, and then there's trouble.
Okay.
You don't want to be that person that that's holding the reins when the horse dies. Somebody catches you.
Like when we were talking about the supervision of like the cafeteria, for example.
Yeah, 45-1.
Okay. Well, that is a big time JOKE. I mean, I'm assuming in other schools, I only go to mine. So I'm like, this is not even sort of kind of close to what the law says it should be.
Yeah. Well, again, that's all well and good. We had a situation. I won't mention the AP's name, but we had an AP at a high school in Charlotte at Garinger. It's been long ago, and you probably won't be able to find it by Googling it. But we had an AP that blew his knee out because he was responding to an incident in the cafeteria, and he blew his knee out, and he was not in charge of the supervision schedule, so he sued the district for inadequate supervision, even though he was an administrator. And you'd think, well, the blame would fall partially on him, but there wasn't enough people in there. No, he was able to sue the district, and he got a new house for his retirement because there was probably 600 students in the cafeteria and about 3 adults. And he was able to show that there was not adequate supervision, and it was never adequate supervision, and nobody was concerned about it except for him. And then he got hurt, seriously got hurt. And but that happens all the time. Again, we can go years, but then when we have that one incident, and how the school business is we look at assistant principals and even sometimes principals in the larger district. They're just circuit breakers. They're there to protect the people on up the line. And so, those huge numbers in open areas, somebody gets hurt, and that doesn't go well. You can't defend yourself on those kinds of things. You have no defense other than we just didn't do it. That we've always done it that way is immaterial. So.
Well, I'll say one more thing. Rory and I were talking, and we're both seeing this. And so that's kind of where I guess this is maybe more of the direction you're wanting this piece to go into is us.
Yes, I want you to know, be able to look and recognize this is not right. This is not by law. This is not how this is supposed to be. And the purpose is not to go accost these people, but so that you'll know that when it's your job and career on the line, that you'll make a better decision. You'll be able to walk in and assess the situation and know I need to fix this, this, and this just to protect myself. Because that's why I covered tort liability with you. Now you can be held personally responsible if you don't follow the law. It's not just your job, but now it's your house as well. It's on the line.
Okay. All right.
That's the whole point. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Good question. All right. So no class next week. Covering cyberbullying tonight. You need to be finishing up 3, going to 4. When you get 4 done, no peer review on 4. Put it all together, run it through, turn it in your intern shell. Again, I'm going to give you up to about 50 or 55% because of the copying from the app cell and the directions. You should be good as long as you're under about 55. You should be good to go. About that much of it should be new information. So that kind of does our housekeeping for tonight. Now, I want to tackle cyberbullying. There are so many misconceptions about cyberbullying. Got one question before I go to cyberbullying. How many peer reviews do we submit per task? For OMA task 1, 2, and 3, you submit 2. There are no peer reviews for task 4. So that would be a total of 6 so far this semester. A total of 6 so far. All right. So let's start looking at some of the things that I've got here on cyberbullying. Let me go back to my desktop, share screen, move this out of the way. All right. First thing I'm going to start with is this is in your disciplinary data reporting manual, the law that says that you have to report bullying. The School Violence Prevention Act of 2009 defines bullying, and so here's what bullying is. And it does, for some reason, folks think, well, if it didn't physically happen at school, if they didn't send the email from here or do whatever that they do from the actual school ground, that we can't address it. I even had that in one of the responses this week to cyberbullying, that their school, if it didn't happen there, they don't bother with it. That's not the law. If it creates or is certain to create a hostile environment by substantially interfering with impairing a student's educational performance opportunities or benefits, the school should get involved in those kinds of things. Now, here's the legal underpinning of that. Before we go any further, the trend among lower courts appears to be to allow schools to punish off-campus cyberbullying if such actions cause material and substantial interference with on-campus school administration. One recent notable federal court decision is worth mentioning here. In Doninger versus Niehoff, 2008, the Second Court of Appeals allowed a school to punish off-campus student speech posted on the internet and created a rule that would govern off-campus cyberbullying. The court held that a student may be disciplined for expressive conduct, even conduct occurring off school grounds, when this conduct would foreseeably create a risk of substantial disruption within the school environment, and it was similarly foreseeable that off-campus expression also might reach campus. And so this is a notable case because Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor was part of the 3-judge panel. So in that case, it was upheld that schools can address cyberbullying that happens that was or originated off campus, because regardless of where it was originated, kids bring it to school on their electronic devices, or they've seen it, it's on their laptops, it's on their phones. That we created this website or this posted this hate speech on some bulletin board away from school doesn't mean it's not going to get back to school. And so for the districts that say, well, if you can't prove it happened here, we don't have to deal with it, they're looking at it from the wrong direction. You should want to deal with it rather than we don't have to, because we don't want to have to tell them parents. Parents will complain. Let parents complain. You don't want to be the school that didn't deal with bullying and a suicide occurs or a murder occurs or serious injury occurs, and it comes to light that this has been going on, and you ducked your responsibility by saying, well, we can't prove that it was originated, that they typed it here at school. Oh yeah, there's people here at school who had it on their PDAs, on their personal devices, or whatever you call those, whatever you want to call it, their laptops or tablets or phones. Yeah, we know they had it at school, but we couldn't prove that it was typed here at school. Try to go to court with that defense when somebody kills, a suicide occurs, or somebody gets hurt or killed. You don't want to be that person, because you're talking about painting yourself a bad portrait in public. You come off as a way that administrators are portrayed too many times now in TV and movies as incompetence. They're just out to look after themselves and don't want to have to deal with issues. Why is it we never see school administration portrayed in a favorable light on TV? There's a new one, this AP Biology. I tried to watch it this week. The principal there is an idiot. He's weak and got other issues. Why we don't ever have anybody. What was it? The only one that we've had recently in memory, what was it? Boston Public, when Chief McBride played the principal there. He looked to be a man of integrity, but that didn't last too long. There wasn't enough laughs on that Everybody's always, the general public thinks most administrators are just suck ups and dolts anyway. And you let something like this get out of control and hide behind, oh, we don't know where it originated from, something bad goes on, it's not going to go well for you. You're going to get sued, not only your district, but you're going to get sued as well. So if it's causing a disruption on your campus and kids are carrying around the phones with pictures on them or whatever at your school, then you need to deal with it. Regardless of where they were when they typed this stuff in, you need to deal with it. If you don't, it's not going to go well for you. It's just not, especially if it's sexual in nature. I've told you the story of the cyberbullying that was going on at Huff High School in Cornelius, Lake Norman. Come to find out, the pictures that were of underage girls. Thankfully, the school didn't say, well, this didn't happen here at school, and it didn't happen at school. But the pictures were being viewed at school. And then to come to find out, the boy was 18 and the girls were minors. That became a federal case overnight. And thankfully, the school had done the right thing. So though you never know what's going to happen with those things, you better pay attention to them. Hiding behind, well, we can't prove it happened here at school is not smart. It might be convenient for a while until something happens, and then it won't be convenient anymore. So you can read that here. Now, let me minimize that one. Let me answer some of these questions. Tracy said she dealt with this today. I dealt with a social media post the other day. I'm known as a teacher who over-reports. No, you're not. I teach AP Bio. My student said I'm too nice to act the way they act in that show. Yeah. All right. So, just stop. Share screen. Okay, so I'm back to where I was. Tracy, would you like to comment? Tracy writes some really good stuff because she's in the role. I love her post on Blackboard, and I don't want to put her on the spot. But Tracy, are you there?
I am.
You want to kind of share your situation with us?
Well, we had, of course, I can't say students' names or anything.
No.
We had a situation that started because we thought we had a squabble in the bathroom with some girls this morning. So I started pulling them one after one into the bathroom to see what was going on. And apparently they were all upset over a post on Snapchat last night. We had a situation where some students yesterday, some young ladies were doing some things in the bathroom they shouldn't have been doing, and it got videoed. And it got videoed and then posted on Snapchat last night. And a person's screenshot, took like a screenshot video of it, and they all felt that they were going to come in and like she was going to come in and tell on them today. And so she never said a word to us. But what happened is because they were all panicking about it, as I started talking to them one after one, my principal and I both met with each girl, found out that there was a Snapchat chat, and in that chat they included her, the young lady, in there. And one girl in particular kept talking about beating her up, we're going to jump you. So at that point, we also, not only to the other counts that we're going to go against consequences, but then we had cyberbullying. And so she really got her punishment. She didn't take part in what happened in the bathroom, but she, threatened the young lady, and it caused a disruption in our Mooresville Middle School day. Sorry, my dog's in a bark. And so that led to her punishment because it did cause a disruption in our school day where the other girl was scared And no other young ladies in the chat talked about going after her, jumping her, beating her up. But this one young lady did specifically 3 times. So when she got her consequence today, it was labeled cyberbullying. And of course, we use the chat as the evidence.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, if you will look on my screen, this is from the reporting manual. And to go along with what Tracy was just telling you, bullying may be reported along with another act, especially if it's serious enough to be reported on its own, or second acts are not required, but you can take additional action with them. So as Tracy said, this one, they upgraded it from bullying to cyberbullying, which is basically a second act, or say they could have actually done cyberbullying and communicating threats if they felt like there was a legitimate threat that she was going to follow through on that threat. Now, communicating threats is required to be reported to police. That becomes a police matter. You say, but Dale, the prefix in front of communicating threats is UB, but it has a general statute number as a suffix on the end, which means it is a violation of the law. Let me go over that with you right quick in this handbook. Remember, all of these acts have a code that reminds you what you're supposed to do with them. So when you go through these, and I'll get there in just a second, hopefully. Here we go. You notice there's a prefix in front of all of the descriptions, behaviors, the incidents that occur. PD means you must report. That's a persistently dangerous. That one's going to count against you, and you have to report it to police. RO means you have to report it to the police, but it doesn't count against your persistently dangerous total. There are a few that are just regular UBs. You say, well, I don't have to tell anybody about, look at the suffix, General Statute 114-277. That means they could have charged her with communicating threats if they felt that there was a likelihood that she was going to follow through. They could have charged her with cyberbullying and communicating threats, which becomes a police matter at that time. But they have the discretion to just use that's not required. If it's not, they don't deem it to be serious, they can just let the cyberbullying statute stand on its own. And I suspect that knowing the principal there, and knowing how competent Tracy and Mrs. Robinson are, I suspect that they handle that appropriately. But see, you have some options there. The main thing to understand is you need to know what your options are. You need to know how to use this manual.
One of the things that we did look at is she had no prior write-ups at all, no history of any violent action. She did not act on, by the time we got to her today, it was about 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Acted on anything. So that's why we went with the cyberbullying instead of anything more serious. Exactly.
That you did not have any reasonable suspicion that she was going to follow through, and that's exactly right. If she had accosted the girl, or if she had a history of violence, you would have gone to the communicating threats and turned it over to the police, because you don't want to be the one that didn't bother to do that, and then later on during the day she sticks a shiv in the girl. Oh God, would that not be great? That you handled this thing and you just turned her loose back out to the general population and she went and knifed somebody. I've had that to happen, by the way. That's not good. We had a case, and it was at a good school, by the way. I don't mean to be ugly. It was at Ardrey Kell, which never has problems. And the girl was communicating threats, and they brought her in and said, well, we don't really feel like she's going to do this. She later took a razor blade and cut the box cutter and cut the girl later that day. That doesn't go well for you. But she had a history of violent behaviors. And I was like, did you not factor that in? Well, we really didn't want to get the police involved. Well, but now they're involved, and now I'm involved. and you don't poke the bear. That's not smart. So that happens. But yeah, that's the call to make. But you need to know the law. You need to know this manual backwards and forwards. And so they absolutely followed a best practice and followed the law there. But yeah, that's what happens. They bring that stuff to school. And if you're not paying attention, it can get away from you in a hurry. All right. Now, I had somebody respond in one of their posts that, the cyberbullying law has been repealed. That's not true. That is not true. That's the next thing that we're going to cover tonight. The notion that the cyberbullying law has been repealed is not correct. One subsection was repealed. One subsection. And let me cover that for you. Are these codes in the form of a Dropbox? They are. They are. They're right there. You choose them. It's a Dropbox. You choose them, and the code is right there on it. And it even flashes almost the screen, reminding you that the default is it'll pop up and says, report this to law enforcement. Will pop up in the consequence box. Before you can put the consequence in, it reminds you that this offense has to be reported to law enforcement. We actually got that set up in there. Absolutely. Good point. So, let me move this out of the way. All right. Cyberbullying statute struck down. This is one of those websites that may not just exactly tell you the truth. But here's the thing that you need. Only A1D was the only thing that was removed. And that was because if you're on social media fighting back and forth, that's just speech. That was why that one, only that one, that one, General Statute 14458.1 was not repealed. Only A1D was the only one that was repealed. And basically that says if you're entering into a Twitter war or a Facebook war, that's free speech and that's not bullying if it's a back and forth. And so let me show you what I'm talking about. Here is the entire law. The one in blue was the only thing that was repealed. And for some reason, people say, I don't have to deal with cyberbullying because that was repealed. No, that's not true. If you're doing back and forth post, that is speech. But all these other things are still in place, folks. And back and forth, there wasn't anybody going to charge a kid with cyberbullying that was back and forth anyway. That was just kind of common sense. But the rest of these things are still, this is still state law in North Carolina. Everything but what's in the blue is still state law. So this notion that, I don't have to deal with cyberbullying, that was repealed. No, that's what some of the fanatics want you to believe. But the real truth, it was only A1D. And that basically speaks to if you're in a Twitter war. But that is speech and not bullying, back and forth. They even, that blog post that I just showed you even highlights that the reason that wasn't upheld is because they were going back and forth. So that part was taken out, but the rest of it is still there. You cannot build a fake profile or website. You cannot pose as a minor in an internet chat room, electronic mail, instant, follow a minor online or in an internet chat room. You can't intimidate or torment their parents or guardians. You can't put a real or doctored image of a minor on the internet. That's what they got the boy at Huff. He had pictures of girls on the internet on his phone and was putting them out on the internet. And you can see all of the things that are illegal. And this is pretty much everything. And Tracy's case is here. Is 4 right here. That's exactly what happened there. Number 4 down here, this one right here, this is what Tracy dealt with today. Copy or disseminate or cause to be made an unauthorized copy of data pertaining to minor. That's what she's talking about. Exactly her case right here. Intimidating or tormenting that minor. It's exactly what, that's exactly what she was talking about that she had to deal with today. That law is still on the books. The only thing is the Twitter war stuff up here, D. And let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me go back to that one. It's not directed at prohibiting communication of thoughts or ideas. It prohibits intentional, specific conduct of intimidating or tormenting. Posting information that criminalizes some messages, but other. But basically, it was the Supreme Court opinion summarizes facts generally portraying the online activity as more of a back and forth. They're not going to prohibit back and forth, a Twitter war, a Facebook war. But if you're intentionally tormenting somebody, that's different. Back again to the statute. All this was just about somebody in a Twitter war. That has been removed. But the rest of this stuff is still in place. Tracy had to deal with A4 with A4 right here today. That's what she was dealing with today. So here's kind of the highlights. Let me just kind of summarize for you. Cyberbullying is still on the books. A Twitter war is about, or a Facebook war of comments and posts back and forth is not bullying if both sides are participating. But if it's just directed one side to the other, it is bullying. The statute other than D still stands. If it has even though it might have happened last night on Snapchat, like in Tracy, if they bring it to school today, you got to deal with it. Even though you know that it wasn't created at school, you got to deal with it because they brought it to school with you. And you need to be proactive in that. You can add other things if it becomes serious, like threats, if you believe that they will carry them out. If you do the threats, the police must be involved because that's a violation of state law. You are not required to add another one with it. Cyberbullying can stand on its own. For some reason, people also have this notion, well, if that's all it is just the cyberbullying, that's not enough to act on. If they actually hit somebody or did something, no, cyberbullying can stand on its own. It does not have to have a secondary act or incident to go along with it to be reported. Some folks use that as an excuse as to why they don't pursue cyberbullying.
When anybody gets into administration, you err on the side of caution.
Exactly.
It's better to deal with what you know has happened than what could happen and deal with those ramifications.
That's correct. Yes, it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to be the person that let the person go back and then somebody got stabbed or somebody committed suicide. Emily made a good point. This whole thing becomes a lot more difficult if the kid involved has an IEP. But you can work through that if you're willing to do the paperwork. You can work through that. You can discipline kids on an IEP if you're willing to do the paperwork. I don't understand. The paperwork is not, manifestation, determination of functional behavior assessment, and a recent psychological.
I'm doing 3 this week. 3 of mine. Yeah. My children are off the chain this week. I don't know what happened. What they ate, I don't know.
But
3 manifestations this week.
Full moon.
Full moon. But on the other hand, you don't want to be the person that just kept on giving them 1-day suspensions, let them create a pattern, and then somebody gets hurt. You go to court, a pattern is 3. Let me get my fingers up on the screen here. You go to court, a pattern is 3. And they ask you, this person did this 3 times. Why are you just giving them 1-day suspensions? You can't say, well, I was trying to avoid doing that paperwork.
Right.
Well, that'll go well in court.
Well, here's my situation. It's not really cyberbullying, but I'll just say it real quick. It's obviously one of my students, and he communicated a threat in chemistry that he was going to make a bomb using those chemicals and blow up the classroom and the school.
Yeah.
That teacher reported it.
You better take it seriously.
So then they did a threat assessment. I sat in on the threat assessment, and he indicated in the threat assessment that he knew the teacher who reported him for this, and that he would be back, exact words, tomorrow, ready to kill her.
Sure.
So, of course, we immediately took action, and my principal's very good about that. And this happened yesterday at 2, and at 3 o'clock we had our manifestation meeting scheduled and had the members ready. And, you know, of course, the EC teacher's responsible for the paperwork, but anyways, so I have 3 like that right now going on. So, you know, when you have your 10 days, you got to do it and get it done in a timely fashion. Yeah. Anywho, our principal is the type that always, like Tracy said, goes on the side of caution. So I do love that about him.
If you don't, you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world. And
sometimes we complain about it. You know, why is he making us do this again? But I do see why now.
Oh, yeah. Question from Michelle is, within the back and forth, a threat is communicated. That's what makes it cyberbullying, correct? Absolutely. Absolutely. When the threat of physical harm or violence pops up in that back and forth, that's when it becomes cyberbullying. It's no longer just a Twitter war now. Now a threat has been communicated. That's what makes it cyberbullying. And if you believe that that person is likely to carry that out, you can not only get them for cyberbullying, you can get them for communicating threats and notify the police. One of the things that I like to do, or if somebody ever mentioned a weapon in their threat, one of the things that I wanted to make sure is I got that to the police, because we would send the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools police force to their house with a warrant to search their house to see if they had a weapon. If they were threatening and I'm going to use a weapon, you better do those kinds of things. If you're not paying attention to the news with all this bad stuff that goes on. Now, I'll tell you, and I was talking to my wife about this week. She said, I remember the hard time that you went through during Columbine. I said, yeah, that was a bad time in my career. I was a high school principal during the original school shooting of Columbine. And it was a really, really, really bad time. I think I must have went a month without sleeping. I don't even know that I laid down for a month. It was not a good time. We had a lot of threats going on. We had to evacuate schools. It was really, really, really bad. Don't want to relive it. But one of the things that I did, I don't know if I would do it again in these days, but what I started to do is when the threat calls would come in, if they just said, there's a bomb in the school, I would say, no, we're not going to evacuate from that. If somebody said, I put a bomb in the school, because what was going on is the students were calling in and they were catching on them. Well, I just heard it, so I just thought I'd better tell somebody. That was the excuse that they were using. And so we had to kind of separate those out between, I'm going to do this, and there's a bomb in the school. Somebody said, I don't have any information. Those are tough decisions to make. I can tell you right now that those are tough decisions to have to make, but you better err on the side of caution. You better follow through. You don't want to be the person that didn't deal with it, and then it got away from you later on.
Hey, I'll say this real quick. When the kid did threaten with the weapon and the chemicals and the this and the that, an officer did go out to their home immediately
Absolutely.
and made them remove. They have lots of guns. Made them remove them and took them to a storage. Like they had to remove them from the property completely and put them in a locked store. I guess they got a storage facility, is what the parents.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, the guns are gone, thank God. But
thank goodness.
And the little boy is too. So okay.
Yeah. We had a situation where we had a kid say he was going to blow up the school, and we went out and we sent the group out, the rapid response team and the police department out to his house, and we did find evidence of chemicals and bomb making, those kinds of things. Looked like it could have become a really, really big problem. And so you need to take these things seriously. That one stayed on the news for about a week. That was somewhere over in Pawtucket on the west side of Charlotte-Mecklenburg, on the west side of the campus. It's been several years back, but you might remember that. They had to explode some of that stuff, and they had to bring the hazmat people in to haul it off. And it wasn't just him, it was his family that was involved. See, sometimes adults are involved in these things as well, and kids kind of tell it at school. It's not that they're just there, we'll do this or I'll do that, because they have access to those things in their home. Come to find out, his family was pretty much had a bomb-making factory in an outdoor building at their house. That was somewhere over in Pawtucket, and so, oh my goodness, you just don't know. You can't hide from this stuff. You need to step up and take care of it. Chemicals, weapons, all of those kinds of things. You just never know what you're going to find when you get these threats in. It's just not good. Bomb parts. We've had bomb. You have all these kinds of things, and as soon as you don't take it seriously, as soon as you don't send the police, as soon as you don't act accordingly, somebody gets hurt, and the blame comes back to the school. That's just the way it is. With all the things that are going on now, with all the shootings and those kinds of things, nothing is beyond the realm. I don't want to get into social commentary over what happened at the high school in Florida, but there was a lot of evidence there that said that this was going to happen. A lot of evidence there that said that this was going to happen. Overwhelming evidence that said that this was going to happen. I don't know what will be the outcome for folks in the school business and there, but overwhelming evidence that this was going to happen. I don't know what the answer was, but it won't go well for them. I can tell you that it will not go well for them. All right, questions about cyberbullying. I know it's difficult, but again, just remember the only thing that's been struck from the statute is the Twitter war stuff or the Facebook. All the rest of it is still there. You can deal with it if it's the origin is unimportant. If it's brought to your school, you need to deal with it. If there's more to it than just the threat, I mean, just the bullying itself, when it becomes a threat of violence, you need to act upon that. And if you believe that it's real, you can get the police involved with that one. If there's a weapon or a threat of a weapon, you especially need to let the police know so that they can go and search the home and get those things out of the home. And then kind of the last thing that I have for you tonight is kind of a one-off situation. And this is not to demonstrate how smart I am. I'm not. You already know that. But I had a school in Charlotte-Mecklenburg that I had 5 knives within a week. 5 knives. It was over in Corey's neck of the woods. Had 5 knives in an elementary school. And they were not just carrying them. I'm talking about that were pulled and threats were made with the knife in their hand, 5 of them in 1 week. And I was like, oh my Lord, what in the world is going on here? Thankfully, nobody was stabbed, but 5 times in 1 week, a kid had pulled a knife out of his pocket and had threatened another kid. And so I went over there and I asked the principal, and she was a very good friend of mine. I said, Mary Jo, what in the world is going on over here? She said, I don't know. We can't figure this out. It's just become an epidemic. It's just an everyday thing. I said, yeah, you've had 5 in 5 days. I'm not understanding what's happening here. And so, she said, we haven't had any, we're not seeing a lot of this was kind of in the era before social media. We were on the cusp, but I'm just not seeing a lot of stuff going on. It's like it's one off, but it's not one off. It's 5 in a row here, 5 days in a row. And I said, well, we'll keep an eye on it. I'm going to send you some extra support and help over here. And we made a little plan, and so I leave. I leave the school and kind of out in kind of one of the rural areas of the western side of the county. And so I'm driving down the road, and I'm like, well, I better stop and get me a Diet Pepsi since I have that addiction. So I stopped at the little country store there, a little convenience store in the community there, and I went in, and I saw what their problem was. The owner had put in a knife display and was selling knives to children. I just couldn't believe it. I said, these knives here, I recognized the knives that we had confiscated, and I saw exactly where they came from. And I entered into a discussion with that person, and he was not a native of this part of the world. And so I said, you do realize you can't be selling these knives to children? Oh no, he said, that's good. They're good customers. And so I had the police pay him a visit, selling knives to minors underage. But just something as insignificant as that, I just happened to, I'm not telling you how smart, I just stumbled on it by accident. But we were pulling our hair out over at the school trying to figure out what in the world has happened here. Is there something is there an undercurrent? Is there some hate group in the area? What is going on here? And it was just something as simple as a guy that ran a store wanted to make a few extra dollars selling knives to kids. And you say, well, Dale, what's that got to do with cyber? You just don't know. You got to get in there and connect the dots. Because if you don't, something bad eventually is going to happen. I can't tell you how lucky we were that 5 times a knife was pulled in a week in 5 days and nobody got stabbed. But the 6th time it could have happened. You've got to get in there and try to connect the dots, call for help. I ended up being helped unintentionally there just by finding something by accident. We had put a panic plan in place. But you can't ignore this stuff that you think, well, it happened off campus and it won't matter. I can't. You better try to connect the dots, like Tracy and her group did. If you don't, it can get away from you really easily. The use of cyber technology is endemic to our society now. Even me walks around with their phone in their hand all day on social media, different platforms. It's not going away. You better be. It is the problem of the future, but it's here now. And that's why I have 1 week specifically for this one, because it has become the problem of our times. It's going to be something you're going to have to deal with on a daily basis. And running from it or hiding or claiming that it's been repealed or ignoring it will not fix your problem. This is one of those you got to deal with. I hate it for you, but it's real in this day and age, and it's every day. Questions you have for me? Tracy, thank you for participating tonight. Emily, all the rest of you, good questions from Michelle. You can unmute yourself and chime in at any time. I don't mean to shut you out, but if we get started too, we kind of go past our time sometimes. That's not a bad thing either. But tonight was very good. I hope that you are more clear on cyberbullying and what your options are after tonight. I know it's a little convoluted, but hopefully I've helped clear it up for you tonight. I won't see you next week. I'll see you 2 weeks from tonight. I want you to get caught up on your work, but I want you to make me a promise that you'll take a day or two off and spend with your family. during this time of year, you need to reconnect with them. Hopefully we'll have some good weather next week and you can get out and do some things with your family, especially if you have children. So kind of renew your hope and faith and recharge your batteries. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Everybody have a good evening.
One more question. You know me. This final OMA with all 4 tasks, you want it like this weekend to the Dropbox-ish?
No, just by the time that we get through, just the time we're through with the break, by the time we're through with the break, you should be through with the OMA. And then this weekend, I'd like for you during the week of the break to maybe move into the skip. But if you just get the OMA done, I'll be happy.
Okay, thank you.
It goes faster.
Okay.
All right. Everybody have a good week.